The problem is, you know, like when you're earning money and that sort of thing, you don't get a lot of people who will disagree with you. You get a lot of yes people around
and
you.
hangers on.
And then Zabaleta came, but he was more like playing centre mid and filling up at left back. But then they started playing right back, and I'm like, yo, this is like. What messed me up was I believe my own hype, and I should have over 500 games for Man City as well. So I massively underachieved. Don't care what anyone said. You might look at it, oh, you might play over 300 games in your career and you won the Premier League. Yeah, I did, but I massively underachieved. And Sherwood should have never been sacked. Brought in Remy Gard, and that was the worst ever decision that Aston Villa could have made at the time, because like him and his staff, training was awful. Everything went downhill. Listen, gotta go fast here. The most I would say to anyone like who wants to play football, you have to enjoy it, and you've got to make them mistakes so then you can learn. You know what I mean? Not some of the daft ones I was making, you know, back in my days, but like, because you got to learn from my experiences. But certain things in your life that you've all been through something, you have to make that mistake to actually, I can go this way now. You know what I mean? That's just the way life is. But yeah, you got to enjoy life as well, man.
What? So, Michael?
But Mike, you know, during those times.
No, go on then. I'll go after.
You know, during those times, didn't you have like maybe an entourage around you, like friends that say, Mike, you know what, you need to pipe down, or uncles or your parents? Or were you just in that bubble?
I moved, so my family was still in Leeds, so I moved to Manchester when I was like 14, but then like 16 properly. So I was in digs, you know, like when I look after you. And then I bought my first house when I was 17, just going 18. So I was living with my bigger brother at the time. So my mum and dad. So you don't tell your mum and dad really nothing. You know like when you go back to your mum and dad, you got the respect. You know what I mean? But they don't know. They don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? They know what's going on, but they don't really know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I was living with my big brother, and the problem is, you know, like when you're earning money and that sort of thing, you don't get a lot of people who will disagree with you. You get a lot of yes people around you.
And hangers on.
And hangers on, you know what I mean? So it's like, I didn't really have anyone, like my older brother would tell me, what are you doing? Like, chill out, you know, a little bit, of course, you know, like older brother would do, but you get a lot of people attracted to you who don't say anything bad to you, you know what I mean? They're just around.
They want their lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, a lifestyle. They're not gonna go against you. So a lot of the time I was just living in denial, you know what I mean? And just living in that moment. And it's only when you get a little bit older when you realize, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah, you can enjoy it, but like I had a friend who, like, I did so much for, like, you know, we had a business together, put his, you know, invested money into a business, helped him out and whatnot. Come to find out, then he's going behind my back trying to deal with the person who I put him onto. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like, so it's like I only really, as sad as it seems, I'm always alone. I've got a son and whatnot. But I don't really chill with people. I become like, not paranoid, but I just keep everyone at arm's length now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's just like everyone's intentions, like they've always seemed like they've got some sort of motive with them. You know what I mean? At the end, they're like, call me paranoid, call me what, but like this is the happiest I've ever been in my life. This is honestly, bar none. All them great times playing football, amazing, but like now I just feel like this is the happiest I've ever been. You know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm in control of my life. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. If I don't do well in the punditry or the media, that's down on me. You know what I mean? That's down to me. Whereas sometimes with my injuries and whatnot, I couldn't affect that, but I can affect this now. You know what I mean? So that's the mindset I have going forward. But yeah, I'm just enjoying the ride, man. I really am.
I think just very quickly, Michael, going back to the lifestyle thing that I said earlier, do you think that's the difference between a player staying at the top for 10 years versus a player, staying at the top for 2-3 years? For example, if we go to Tottenham, you see a player like Harry Kane that's been one of the best strikers in the world for the past 7-8 years. And we saw Dele Alli, for example, burst onto the scene, perform to a world-class standard, and all of a sudden, the performance level has just dwindled massively. So do you think it could potentially be something to do with Dele's application that's changed, or sometimes players just go through bad spells?
Yeah, I think in the media, for as much negativity there can be, sometimes we get too much hype as well. So Dele was doing madness, like all them goals he scored. He was doing like madness. When he kicked over them, but like saying to people like he probably won't have a season like that again, and he's gonna be crucified for that because that was unbelievable. Only like we're talking about Yaya Toure, Lampard, and all that. The only them boys can have them seasons, you know what I mean?
And at a period, they were comparing these numbers to like Gerrard, Lampard. You know, I remember that stage. Yeah,
that's what I mean. And when you compare them to them greats there, it's always gonna be a slippery slope from that. If he would have been doing that over 5 years, then they could have compared. So the sort of built him up to shoot him down. Of course, you got to get hype when you get them sort of numbers. But Dele Alli, I still think Dele Alli is incredible. I think he's got injuries at the wrong times. And the manager, it's all about luck in this game as well. If you've got a manager who believes in you, like Mancini believed in me, if you've got a manager who believes in you, then that can help you also. Like, we're assuming that Harry Kane lives a better life than Ali. That's just perception, but we don't know that. We don't know that. You know what I mean? So when we talk about application and on those sort of things, like I can't judge on what he's doing outside of the field, but I would protect him just because of like that season that he had was going to be too hard to replicate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no player like wants to play bad and stuff like that. Yeah, we can all do, but it's people talk about his application could have been better, but when you're not playing, it's hard, you know. Like when you got people on social media like killing your vibe every week, saying, "Oh, it's this, it's that," it takes its toll. Like, could Dele Alli be doing things better for his career? We all can, you know what I mean? We all could be doing things, of course, you know what I mean? And you've got to ride it out while it can. But I think he's been hung out a little bit to dry by the way he's been treated. And then he himself, when it's come to it, he's not performed at the level we all know he can as well. Do you know what I mean? Because that it feels like his confidence has been knocked from that as well. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Dele Alli, and I just believe that he had too much hype on him on the time, and I just knew that this would happen to him because like it was too hard to do that same season again. It was you know, but I still we all say Dele Alli is good though. Come on, he's a top player. Yeah. He's a top player. But you know, and I know, football waits for nobody. Do you know what I mean? It waits for no. Look at all the emerging talent now. You got Grealish, you got Maddison, you know, you got Mount, you got Foden,
Saka.
Saka, you know, even Smith Rowe now is getting thrown into that equation. So like, you know, like if you have a matter of season or two, like football don't wait for anyone, and that's why like I rate people like Henderson and Milner. They might not have the ability of some of them players that you mentioned, but consistency, they've got it in abundance. You know what I mean? And that's the key. 100%. That's the key of football, man. That's the key.
100%. Do you know what, Michael? I wanted to ask you, right? What the dynamic is like in training when you have 2 or 3 players all vying for the same position that all feel as though they are good enough to start. So obviously the dynamic is different if you've got a player that is a nailed-on starter, and then the other person in that position, accepts that they're a squad player. But when you've got 3 players, so in your case, for example, it was you, it was Zabaleta, it was Nedum Anoa'i, right? All 3 of you guys are good enough to start, and all of you would feel like you should. So how does it work in training, for example, if you guys all feel like you should be starting? Is it still very much jovial and, everyone getting on, or is there a bit of additional spite in certain challenges and a bit more aggression in certain areas? Like, what was it like for you managing that dynamic?
Listen, it was peak, because you know what it is? Because, like, we all say football is a team sport, but if there's a man in your position, then, like, you have to be amicable over them off the pitch. But really, like, you don't want them to do well. Yeah, and that's just keeping it real. Like, Nedum bust on the scene before me. We both played centre-back, and we both played right-back as well. And he was doing his thing. Like, I only made my debut because, like, Danny Mills and Nedum Anoa'i they got injured at the time. But then I was like, I'm not giving this shirt up. I'm not giving this shirt up no matter what. And then Zabaleta came, but he was more like playing centre mid and filling up at left back. But then they started playing right back, and I'm like, yo, this is like, go over there, because it was like, at the time when he first come, like, he was just like a 7 out of 10. He was 7 out of 10 at everything. You know what I mean? He good on the ball, like, quick enough, like, tactically, good. He was good at everything.
Aggressive,
but aggressive. But did I think at the sort of attributes he had and the attribute he would dislodge me at the team? I'm thinking not a chance. You know what I mean? And that's like, you got to back yourself. But then what he did when I got injured, just like I took it off Nedum, Zabaleta took it off me and held it, and he was like, "You're not getting your position back." So then, like, you're going into a table on a Friday night before a game, and he's playing in your position, and you've got to be happy for because for you a team game, but really deep down you're angry, you inside because you want to play. You know what I mean? And that's keeping it real. You know what I mean? It's like you guys on a podcast now. You not got your podcast, and like, but one of you's got to drop out. You're like, oh, hold on, I'm not dropping out. You're like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not dropping out of this, but so it is difficult. That's the bit I didn't like about football, because although, like, it's individuals within a team, you know what I mean? And, like, I liked Nedum Anoa'i, but at the same time, he was my rival, but I really liked him. He was one of the nicest guys off the field, but you don't think that he's thinking, I need to do something better than Micah, or Zabaleta's thinking, I need to do something better than Micah as well. That's just the truth. A lot of players don't admit that, but it happens. No one's happy to sit on the bench and take up. That's why I hear when people talking about, oh, he's happy just sat on his bench, picking up his money. It's so demoralizing sitting on the bench, like, knowing that you should be playing. Like you said, if he was a squad player, it's fine. But when you believe you should be playing, it's one of the worst feelings ever. It really is.
The other week we spoke to Yannick Bolasie. He said basically he's been frozen out. Everything they ask him to do, he does it. How does that feel? Because from the media, we only see one side. Oh, the players on the bench. As you mentioned, people are like, yeah, he's picking up his money. He should be happy, 60 grand a week or whatever. But what's the emotional toil? What things are you going through?
The whole Pellegrini one was sort of like misunderstood, because the day before the start of the season, when he took over the manager, if you look at the clips after, me and Navas was playing in the tournament, they got him on. AC Milan was doing the madness against AC Milan, like overlapping. It was just crazy. Like, we just had one of them games, where everything goes right. Me and Navas, Pellegrini like pulled me before and said, "You're gonna start the season." The day before I was going to start the season, in trade, hand on my heart, I pulled my hamstring. Zabaleta starts. has the game of his life again. You know what I mean? So like in the media, it's like, well, Pellegrini wasn't ready, but actually he was having me. But then Zabaleta came in the team and did so well. Then he actually made me want to sign a new contract. But you remember when it was like that, you had to get so much English players for the quota. So we started getting all these players and whatnot. So then Zabaleta was firmly number one at this point. So I felt like he was offering me the contract just to be number two. And that's when I decided to leave. So like when you feel like you've got so much ability, but then someone doesn't rate you, like you don't know how to take it. You know what I mean? Especially for someone like me, because I've played since I was 17. You know what I mean? And then for someone to say you're not good enough to play in my starting 11, like at what would it be, 20, 24, 25 or whatnot? Like it's hard to take. You know what I mean? That's the other side that people don't really see. But then you got to learn from it. You know what I mean? And I was nothing but complimentary about Zabaleta, because he deserved to be in that team, because he took his chance when he had it. You know what I mean? And I respected him from that. But like, Balassi, I played with him at Aston Villa as well. So what he's going through at Everton now is tough. You know what I mean? It is tough, and people think, oh, he's on so much amount of week, he'll be all right. But I know deep down, he'll be low. He'll be really low. You know what I mean? You can go. The only thing at them times, you can go to your family, and that's why your family is so important, because when anything happens, anything low time, the only people you could really count on is your family. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So now, like for his mindset and his headspace now, like him having a good family around him, he'll be all right.
And Michael, how do you sum up your career? Because you're only 32.
Yeah.
Like, you're still looking tip-top shape. Like,
I'm still hitting the gym, boy.
Still making sure that trim's always on point. How do you sum up your career? Because you retired so young. So do you feel like you could have done more, or you're actually happy with your career?
No, I could have done way more in my career. I made my England debut at 18, and I only finished with 13 caps. Like I played I made my debut for Man City at 17, and made 250 appearances. What messed me up was I believed my own hype at the start. I managed to change it round to my best in the season was when I was playing for the Premier, when we won the Premier League. Like I got nominated for Player of the Year for Man City, and that was my best season, hands down. People might look at my early seasons and think that was more because of my age, but in terms of like numbers and affecting the game, when we won a league, that was my best season. But then, by the time I come round to then and got my head like I need to start, there was other players who was good as me, or if not better than me. I'd missed out a lot of time, and then soon as I was ready for that, injuries started happening. I've had 5 operations on my knee. You know what I mean? And it just held me back massively. My form, like every time I come back from injury, I could never get my form to what it was. You know what I mean? And I was just playing within myself. I didn't feel free. Every time I got no meniscus, so it's bone on bone like cartilage. So every time I run, basically my knee swells up. You know what I mean? And then every time it just got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I was ready to show I'm better tactically, I got better technically, but it was too late. And I should have took the opportunity early. All that had been there for me, I took a little bit for granted, because I was one of the best players in the team too early on, and I didn't really have anyone to learn off, because they was looking at me for advice when I had so much more learning to do. I was sort of thrown in the deep end, and then because I play for England now, I'm the finished article, and I was nowhere near that. I was nowhere near it. I missed out on so much coaching, so much everything because I just got thrown in too soon. And I should have done way more. I should have had minimum 50 caps for England, had my mentality been a little bit better along with the injuries. And I should have over 500 games for Man City as well. So I massively underachieved. Don't care what anyone said. People might look at it, oh, you know, you might play over 300 games in your career and you won the Premier League. Yeah, I did, but I massively underachieved. And it hurts me now that I wouldn't even say application. I just could have been a little bit more savvy with it, you know, like being a little bit more like streetwise with it, knowing if I knew what I knew now, I know we say hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if I knew what I knew now back then, with a manager who believed in me and no injuries, I could have done way more. So, yeah, I'm not going to say it's a failure, but massive underachievement, massive.
Yeah, Micah, man, that's good introspection, you know, the fact that you realise that. And I wanted to talk about your time at Aston Villa. Obviously, there's the yin and the yang, chaos and order. You're going from a changing room with, you know, winners, that winning mentality. Then you go to, you know, Aston Villa. Can you explain to us, like, the differences in mentality and infrastructure at the club that you realise going from the winners and going to Aston Villa?
Yeah, I think Aston Villa at the time, it was just more like the transition because they got rid of Delph, got rid of Ron Vlaar, and they got rid of Benteke. So that was their spine of their team. So if you take a spine out of a team, like it's always going to be difficult to stay up. We had a lot of good signings, and a lot of signings were good signings, but just not ready to come in all at once. And because I was the experienced one, and I was the one supposed to be leading the team, but we had no time to play together. We didn't have no cohesion. We didn't have really anything. We just had a lot of talented players. And on the Sherwood was playing some good football, but it soon turned. Sherwood should have never been sacked. Brought in Remy Gard, and that was the worst ever decision that Aston Villa could have made at the time because like him and his staff, training was awful. Everything went downhill. And then, you know, you see it on the pitch. And my performances, I went from playing really well, some of the best football I played under Tim Sherwood, to playing some of the worst football I played under Remy Gard because we just didn't have no leadership. Like no one, there was a massive divide between the French players and the English players. And you could just see it on the pitch. We didn't have anything. So to go from like that winning mentality every single week to then people were just happy to, you know, do the bare minimum. Like I couldn't get my head around that. I was just scratching my head. And then you have to realise, like, that's the difference between why they're champions and why we got relegated. And I was partly to blame for that because my form wasn't good enough in that season as well.
Yeah, so what type of things go on in that changing room? Because I remember listening to a podcast with Rio Ferdinand, and he was talking about the differences between Man United and QPR. When you're at Man United, no one ever mentions money. But when he was at QPR, they'd be like, yeah, I've got 2 years left in my 60K a week contract. I'm just going to sit out. Are those the sort of things that go on in the dressing room environment?
Yeah, they go in. Yeah, it goes on a lot. Like the money shouts get thrown around a lot of the time. Like at Man City, it's like, well, how can you throw money shouts to Aguero and Silva and company and all that? They're just gonna laugh at you. You know what I mean? So it never really was in the dressing room, but like I think it's more like a banter thing. I don't buy too much in it, but everything is like it's more competitive at that. You know, the lower end Premier League team. It's like who's got which car. You know what I mean? Who's got the biggest house? Like Gabriel Boglahar used to call him HP, highest paid. You know, them ones. You know, just anytime like we played cards or something. Oh, it's all right though, because I'm HP. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just them ones. So it's more like a friendly banterish, but at the top, You don't really have that sort of banter because you can't have that banter. What are you gonna have? Oh, I'm on 200 grand a week. He's on 250. Just, you know what I mean? It's not. It's just like, if you're earning that much money, you're earning money, aren't you? So it doesn't hold the same weight. But I think, like, the lower you go down, people are trying to be something that they're not, and I think they try to prove something that they don't have to. Whereas the top teams, their mentality is fully focused on the next game and how they can be a better player. And that's what I thought was the difference between, say, a City and an Aston Villa. But some of the nicest people, some of the nicest friends I speak to more out of the Villa, like I still speak to Grealish, John McGinn, Henry Lansbury, Gabby Agbonlahor, Alan Hutton. They're ones I speak to more because, like, we went in through the trenches together, you know, like, got relegated, and, like, that's where you have to be together, you know what I mean? So, the changing room at Aston Villa was amazing. Nothing but, you know, jokes and good vibes.
You know what, Micah, you obviously spoken about the fact that when you arrived, you know, there were some key departures in that season, and obviously, upon arrival, you were basically given the captain's armband. And so, with all the things that you mentioned about there being a divide in the dressing room and whatnot, did you have any, like, concerns or doubts about taking on that responsibility? How was it managing that dynamic? You're a new player, you know, you don't have that kind of relationship with some of the players in the dressing room because you're new, right? You've not worked with them before. So now being given the responsibility of being a captain, how was that dynamic for you?
No, that was easy. I've always been, like, a leader on the pitch. I'm always banter off the pitch, but as soon as I step over the white line, I'm serious, like, sometimes too serious. So taking over as captain, I was probably the most experienced player apart from Gabby Agbonlahor in the Premier League. He probably played more than me. So it was going to be him or me. But because I always like to have your captains normally sort of from the back because they can see the whole game, can drag people in positions and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I didn't feel no pressure or no added responsibility. I just think it was the right thing to do because of my experience. If you got a Premier League winner coming to a side who are trying to stay in the Premier League, then it's just probably the obvious decision. So I didn't feel no pressure, and I like to lead, and I think no matter what situation, whether I've got to be serious or jokey, a lot of people would listen to me because of the way I approach it. I don't think I'm better than everyone. I don't, you know, go with an aggressive manner. I'd pull them aside and speak to them properly, you know what I mean? And I think they're the sort of responsibilities a captain should have. And that's definitely what I did when I went into that dressing room.
Obviously, that season culminated in relegation where it was just a mess and the team went down with a whimper. At the time, Stan Collymore, you know, he had a famous rant. And I asked Joleon Lescott the same thing. Do you understand Stan Collymore's frustration? Because you're a pundit and you need to give an opinion. You need to, you know, say stuff. You need to be vocal. Do you understand his point of view? Or as a player, did that sort of epic rant just baffle you at the time?
No, I understood it. I even understood it at the time because he's big Villa. You know what I mean? He supports them. So I totally. But the only thing I didn't like about Stan Collymore, he made it personal. You know what I mean? He made it personal. So, like, if he would have seen me at the Villa training ground or somewhere and had that rant at me to my face, and we would have sat down like men and whatnot, I would have accepted it because, one, I don't think he would have ranted and raved like that to me anyway. And two, and two, like, I don't think it's fair to go on radio and just start talk about football, you know what I mean? Like, don't talk about personal lives. But the problem with Stan, like, he's so knowledgeable about the game. Some of his tweets and stuff, like, I really like. He actually knows a lot about football. Then he spoils himself by going on these rants when he doesn't really need to go on them rants, which I don't understand. Like, if he had my number and he wanted to voice his opinion, he could have just rang me, or you know, we've texted on Twitter sometimes. You know what I mean? Before, you know, in the inbox. So if he really wanted to vent his frustration, he could have just spoke to me. So like, it's like anything. Like a lot of the times now, the media, that clickbait in it. It's like you're saying something for a reaction and all that thing about. If you truly believe that, just ring me up. You know what I mean? And tell me a point. You don't need to tell it to the whole world, for them perception to be bad about me. And after that rant and whatnot, I was going to training. I used to get trained down afterwards. I was going to training one of the times, and like I was in a black cab, but I had my hood up and I had my had a hat on. So we was talking and all that, and tapping. Oh, I wish I could see that Micah Richards spoiling our club. If I seen him, I'd give him a right good slap. So this is a taxi driver, but he doesn't know it's me in the back.
Oh,
Crazy,
no.
crazy, crazy.
That's so awkward.
So I'm like, what do I do here? So I'm thinking about, do I go back to the Micah of Chapeltown, you know, the youngster that
the rough and ready one, the rough and ready one.
or do I just pretend like I didn't hear and pretend it's not me? So the point I'm trying to make is that he calls that with, you know, people can call you bad football, of course, but it's what he was causing around the town for us as well, where people was generally turning on us, talking about someone's gonna slap me in my face. You know what I mean? You know, when people and because he's loved by the Aston Villa fans, like when he says that sort of thing, it's like people just automatically believe exactly what he said and take it as gospel. You know what I mean? So I feel like because I respected him as a player and whatnot at Villa, I feel like he could have dealt with that situation a lot better, because he knows how much pull and how much fans he has at that club. So when he started going on his rant, I thought...
If you're listening, Micah, if you're listening, Jolien, give us a call. I remember that. I was driving around, I was like, right, he's calling her now. He's not pulling no punches. That was direct.
That's what I mean. And you know, I was so close to wanting to ring as well. You know what I mean? I was so close to wanting to ring but you have to take the loss because you're not playing well. You know what I mean? You just have to take it. You know what I mean? You just have to take it, which is difficult. So like I said, I understood why he was so angry. I just think he could have channeled it in a different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Micah, you know, we've spoken about your career on the pitch, you know, punditry. Obviously, you're doing big things there. I want to talk about off the pitch. You know, like I know it's well known that you're into your properties and stuff like that. So, like, what sort of interests apart from the game do you like getting involved in?
Yeah, I do. I've been doing property. When I talk about, you know, the young life when I was buying cars and all that, at the same time I was buying properties still. So I've got various properties that I rent out. I started building houses as well, but it's come to a crossroad where both are taking up so much time. I've got to park one, and obviously I'm not going to park the punditry for now. And then I can always do the property stuff in the background, but because like I've been doing it for so long, it needs full detail and attention to it. Because you know when you're doing something, you can't do everything at once. And I've made that mistakes where I've left other people to look after certain things, and it's not been run the way I want to run it. So yeah, I was being invested in property from years ago, because I was always scared of going back to, and it's not about going back to poverty or anything like that, but just not messing up the mistake, you know, like the chance that I've been given up to me. You know how many times people have been given a chance and then you just mess it up? Like I wasn't about to, although I didn't reach my goal in terms of where I wanted to be in my career-wise, I made sure, like, off the field, I was be able to live the life I wanted to live, regardless, you know, what would happen in football or not. And, you know, I did that. You know, doing the punditry stuff now is just a bonus. I'm doing something that I love, you know, and I'm grateful for my opportunity again.
100%, man. Do you know what, Mike? I wanted to ask, right? Let's rewind back. I know we were talking about career and so on and so forth. but I want to rewind back maybe 13 years ago.
I think I know what you're going to
So I think you were, what, 18, 19?
I know what you're gonna say already.
I know what you're going to say. I know
Bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, yeah? You made a very cameo appearance in the music video. Do you know why this was so big, right?
Fam, that
song was everywhere. And you know, back at that time, we were going to house parties and stuff.
That was the tune.
Getting played in house parties.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking about T2 featuring Joe Heartbroken, right? So that was like a bit. And so when you were in that video, it's like, wow, this is like
This is mad.
stardom on a different level, right? So how did that come about? Like, I know obviously, I think T2's from your neck of the woods, right? Leeds and whatnot. Yeah. So were you always involved in music? And also, back at that time, everyone was listening to So Solid and so on and so forth. Everyone thought there was a rapper or an MC. So back then, were you involved in music? Did you maybe on the side, I could do a little...
Listen, man, I got bars, you know, listen. Nah, T2 was from Leeds, innit? And he just said, like, you know, like, you got all them guys who want to be like, you listen to this and you listen. But T2 had always been, we used to make beats from time ago, so he's always been, like, creative with it. And so I'm making a video. I know you're doing your thing in football, but we need a little bit of hype for the video, because this time I was playing for England or whatnot. So I said, all you need to do is just pretend like you're driving a car. So I'm like, there's no chance I'm doing that. Not a chance, you mad. But then eventually he taught me round. I listened to the song first and I was like, yo, this is a banger, you know? So I'm like, yo, get me in this video, get me in this video. But yeah, he was T2. He's a cool guy. I'm sort of disappointed he didn't do more with his career as well, because he's mad creative guy as well. And yeah, back in the day it was just sidelined as well. I don't know how old are you guys? So I don't know what.
Yeah, late 20s, 27, 28.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've mentioned it on the pod, so. Mark, you're doing us dirty, bro. You're doing us dirty, bro.
Michael Richards exclusive, you know.
So Garage back in the day, Garage was a one.
That was a thing, yeah.
That was a thing. And then he come with his little bass line and whatnot. And he just blew up, you know what I mean? But Garage was my thing growing up. That's what I listened to. Wiley and all them boys.
Yeah.
D-double-E.
Come on. Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on. The streets won't forget. But no, obviously, Micah, just to end up this interview, we just want to ask you a few quick fire questions and then we'll let you go. It's been a pleasure. So my question is, outside of Manchester City, because I know you've got your bias towards Kevin De Bruyne, who is the best player in the Premier League?
You know what? Up until yesterday, I would have said Fernandes, but he doesn't do nothing in the big game.
Michael, I need to tell you, big up for the halftime analysis. Big up.
No, okay, let me go. Kevin De Bruyne is number one. I'm gonna go Mane. I know he's not in a different form at the moment. I'm gonna go Mane number two. Yeah.
Yeah, Micah. So another question is, for any youngster, aspiring to be a footballer, if there was one piece of advice you would give them, what would it be?
A lot of people say work hard, but I say enjoy, because when you're a young like player or young person, like you enjoy football anyway. Do you know what I mean? So just just enjoy it. Like people are taking the enjoyment away, and that's what I don't like. Like, remember the days when we all played football when you're young? Just enjoyment. They were the best days of your life. When someone starts saying, "Oh, this is serious," that's the problem. When you're that young player aspiring, just enjoy your football. That's the best piece of advice I can give to you.
I got one as well, Micah. So my question is, it's a two-part question, 1A, 1B. 1A, what is the most played song on your playlist right now? 1B, if you're going out to a function, let's say it's not COVID times and restaurants and like everywhere is opened up, what is your preferred trainer of choice if you're going to a function?
What's my trainer of choice? Oh, trainer like crepes.
Yeah, crepes. Yeah.
I'm training crepes, man. It's crepes, okay. I'm gonna see the 21 Savage at the moment. You know, he's a beast.
Yeah,
he's a beast.
Nah, he dropped some bangers.
He dropped some bangers. The most played though. You know what? Digga D at the moment is the most played.
Okay.
Digga D.
Yeah.
Because I watched the documentary on him.
Yeah.
So I watched the documentary. I was like, yeah, I like this guy. So I've just been drilling it. So that's the most at this moment. I think Giggs is my number one. If you talk about Giggs and Kane,
yeah. We're from that neck of the wood as well. We're from that neck, South London.
Giggs, Kane, though, and Dave for me the best. Right, I just love them. That's just my preferred choice. But yeah, Digga D has got the most. And what trips? I've got to say Puma because I'm sponsored by Puma. Do you know what I mean?
Clever.
Making those mistakes, man. Not making those mistakes.
You try to set me up there,
So, Michael, I think we'll do one more and then we'll let you go. So my final one is, what is the toughest element of being a professional footballer?
Toughest element is the mental side, being able to take a knockback and then go again. You know what I mean? Because we've all got ability. We can't play football, can't we? To some level, but at some stage, someone's gonna say you're not good enough. Talk about all the great players. They've always had that setback, and then it's that mental capacity to say, you know what, I need to go again and prove them wrong. So I think that's the hardest, because how many ballers do you know when he was younger that was amazing? You think, oh, they're definitely going to make it. They're definitely going to make it. But then the mental side of it, you can have all the ability. If you've not got the mental side, then yeah, that's the ability is only half the battle.
Yeah, last one from me. Outside of football, or since retiring from football, what's been like the biggest challenge?
Retiring from football, the biggest challenge, I think, is just not being able to do something that I love. Like, this is the second best, being able to talk about football, but not being able to play. That's been the biggest challenge, like not playing football. Imagine play football every day for your life and then it just stops. Like, it's just crazy. So I'd say that's been the biggest challenge. But I'm enjoying this challenge, so I played it into a positive.
100%. And we can't let you go without asking you this one, Micah. In your career, who has been the most difficult winger or striker that you've played against? Who absolutely tore you to...
Gareth Bale absolutely tore me to shreds.
No, but he rates you though. He's like, yeah, you're the biggest opponent that he's faced. So he rates you.
If it wasn't for Joe Hart that day, oh my, yeah. He didn't make on to me, but you know when he scored the goals against Macon. Remember
Taxi for Macon. I remember them
days. He wasn't
the
same after that. Macon was never the same.
He did that to me, but luckily he didn't score after it. Otherwise, I'd have been a meme right now. You know what I mean?
What's a way to
a final one from me is Mo Salah. Obviously, we've seen him turn into a world-class winger. Obviously, you spent some time with him at Fiorentina. Back then, did you see that cold, hard, relentless mentality that he's got right now? Because when he came to Chelsea, people are probably like, maybe this guy's a bit fallible or he lacked that self-belief. But at Fiorentina, did you think, this guy's got the mindset to get to the top?
Straight away, mindset, training, better than everyone that's in training, but doing stuff afterwards. don't forget, he came from Basel, didn't he, to go to Chelsea?
Yeah.
And he was unbelievable there. Like, he didn't he don't just become a bad player. He just didn't fit into Chelsea's system at the time. You don't lose your ability. His mindset was still there. Just had to show everyone that he can do. We talk about the setbacks. Had that one setback. Okay, Chelsea don't want me. Let's go to Fiorentina, go to Roma, and back to Liverpool, win a league. Took the long way around, but he was
the
there.
Champions League.
Exactly, you know what I mean?
No, Micah, it's been a pleasure, man.
Cool, man.
This was epic, man. Everyone's gonna love this, man.
Yeah.
Big up for coming on.
Big up every single time, man. Honestly, we appreciate
No
it.
problem, man. Keep doing your things, honestly. I've been watching you guys. I've been watching you, man. Keep going.
Love.
100%, man. All the best, man.
Nice one. I got radio now, so I'll check you, man, in a bit, yeah?
Love Micah.
Man.
Love.